I just want to believe that we are doing well with the most recent tax. So far, I've seen only one submission. Though we have about a couple of days left, please let us do that tax and submit before due date. Before due date. Okay. Okay. So quickly, we'll just spin up our development server, put on our postman, and as well our project folder on VS Code as well. So we just continue from where we stopped. So for me, my own project folder is on my desktop. So by now we are already familiar with this, with this step. But usually I could have just been opening this and before the class. But I want to keep doing this, so we keep seeing the step over and over and over and over and over till it stays permanently. So that's the whole essence of why I keep doing that. Not that I won't have been opening that before the class, but I choose not to for that reason. City in I'll just simply open up this on VS Code and if VS Code is coming up, I will just say Josephine, your hand is raised. Is there a question?
Yes, sir. Sir, I've not been graded for my task I submitted. I don't know.
Which tax is this? Is it the last tax? Is it the most recent tax or
No,
which,
sir, it's not the most recent one.
not the
The
most
one you said
recent one?
we could submit before 12 yesterday.
So that should be personal tax two, I guess.
No, sir, it's one.
Personal tax one,
Mm, yes, the grid task.
grid tax.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I will look at that as well after the class.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I put on our development server using UVCon main colon instance of a fast API, which is app. And like I said, I'm having port issues, so later I have to be specifying a separate port from my own server. You don't have to do this. So yours is working well. You have to do that. Then I put on the reload ability, and our server is up and running. Now let's pull up our postman for testing. All right, so while our postman is coming up, so this is where we actually stopped in our last class. Okay, so in our last class we looked at what is this thing not doing? We looked at how we could write basic parameterized route. Okay, so we looked at query and we also looked at path parameter. So I don't think there's anyone that have difficulty with that. Is there anyone that's still having difficulty with that? Is there anyone that's still having difficulty with that? All right. So the silence means there is no one having difficulty with that. Okay. So we left off with request body. So and we're gonna pick it up from there, and then we're gonna talk about other parameters. And then we understood that all these parameters, right, basically means in which was information can be sent from the client area to the server side, right? And then fast APIs have given up a lot of ways which you can utilize them. So what I want to leave with us is that after the class, I want us to actually go on a research, okay, and look at when to use a specific parameter and when not to use that parameter. Okay. So that is more like a personal research. I will not ask for it. That's more like a personal research. So at the end of this class, we're basically going to talk about I think all the parameters. So in your own spare time, go on a personal research, look at how we can do what, how you can, where to use a specific parameter and when not to use a specific parameter. That will help you a lot. You don't end up sending information with what a wrong parameter. Not that that will not work, that will work, but then it wouldn't be what a convenient way of doing that. But it wouldn't be a convenient way of doing that. Okay, so looking at request body, right? Another means of doing what, of sending information from the client region all the way to what, to the server side. The request body. So what exactly is request body? The request body is basically data that is being submitted, right? So this data is not actually available via the route, but then it's being submitted to the route. I don't know if we get the difference. So it's quite different from a query and a path parameter, right? The query and path parameter lives in the route itself, but the request body comes in a different route, but then it's more like a data that is being submitted to what, to a specific route. Okay, information that's being what, submitted to a specific route. So it does not live in that route. It means that if I should go to, assuming this login route, I cannot I cannot do what, I cannot actually access those information, unlike what the path and the query parameters. So the request body does not hold those information in its route, but then it accepts those information as well as request body, as a request body. I'm gonna see how we can do this or where this can be used. So if we've ever had a situation where we've gone to a website and then we are required to do what, to fill in some forms, and then once you click on submit, you see that those information you can't find it anywhere on the page, neither can you find it on the route. But then behind the scene, those information is being packaged, right, and being what, submitted to a specific route. The specific route you may not, you yourself may not actually know it, right? But then behind the scene is what, there is a submit, there is a route that's being submitted, right? There's a route that is being what, submitted. So this can be done, and we can do what, we can write a server script that is expecting this kind of what, information, to how we wrote, similar to how we reason what, endpoint that are expecting query and path parameters. We can also do what, write informations, or sorry, we can also create what route that is expected, that is expecting an information to what, to be submitted to. Do you understand? So request body is more like what, information that what that is being submitted, not through the route, but to a specific route. Is that understood? Is that understood?
Yes, sir.
So well, we are gonna see how this can be done. We're gonna see how this can be done. So now remember that now was the website is what comprises of two sections, right? The client section and the server section, or should I say the front end and what, and the back end. And then we also said that what, that if at all this has to communicate with one another, that this information must come what, in a JSON structure, or should I say in our dictionary what, structure, right? In our dictionary structure. So how would we want to do this? Now it's simple, right? We can simply let fast API know that, okay, that we are expecting what is, assuming one wanted to submit what, this kind of information, right? Where there is a name, there's email, and there's age, and there's what, and there is what, a password, right? Now we can let fast API, right, know that we are expecting what, this kind of information in a what, in a JSON standard or in a JSON format. And we can do that using what we call pedantic model. So pedantic model is separate, is a separate entity, all right? So it has no business with what, with fast API. Fast API only makes use of what, of pedantic model for some obvious reasons. Okay, for some obvious reasons, which we talk about that those reasons in our next classes when we dive into validations, right? But for now, I want us to know that that we can do what, that we can use pedantic By the way, to spell pedantic is Pydantic. All right. So pedantic model, we can let fast API do what, to make use of pedantic to do what, to create a more like a class or a model or an instance or a blueprint of what, of an expected information that should come in what, in a JSON format. What do we mean? So first of all, we need to do what, we need to bring in our pedantic model. We need to bring in our pedantic model. So to do that, to do that, we can do what, we can actually import it. Okay, we can actually import a base model, right, which is what we will use to create this class or this blueprint of what we are expecting. So to do that, we can simply just come here and just say import. Usually, sorry, from Pydantic. Okay, from Pydantic. So Pydantic is being installed automatically once you can add the pip install fast API. That will actually get installed automatically, right? So from Pydantic, I want to go ahead and import sorry, not fast API, base model. So here it is, base model. And then what you now do is what, you create a class, right? A class can carry any name. A class can carry any name. So to create a class in Python, we use the keyword class. Majority of us made use of class in our previous tasks, in our previous tasks, and uh, and that was fantastic, right? That was good. So for one of us that doesn't really have an idea what class is, I'll just use this to do what, to explain how class works, right? So class is more like a wrap for a specific kinds of type. What do we mean? So so far we know that we have a lot of data types in Python, right? We have the int, we have the float, we have the string, we have the list, and the rest of them. And then each of these are basically classes in Python, right? So we have the list class, we have the integer class, we have. So now what happens with that? Once we create a variable, let's say I have a variable called x equals to 10. Okay. Now x here becomes what, an instance of an integer class. What do I mean by instance of an integer class? It simply means that x here is more like an object that's being created, or a variable that's being created from the integer class. So as such, every function or every attribute contained within the integer class can work on x. Are we following? Am I too fast? Are we there? Please
Yes,
repeat.
sir.
Okay. All right. So so basically now it means that x now is an instance or an object created from the class, from the integer class, and as such every function, or should I say every model, sorry, every object and every attribute within that class can work on that variable x. And if you also have and if x was holding a value called hello, it means that that x there is an instance or an object that is created from the class strings. As such, every function pertaining or every function contained within that class is what can be can be used on the value of x. That's how you can do x dot upper, and this will work. That's because x there now becomes one instance of the string class. So we are going to simply just create our own class, right? And this class we can call it any name. And to create a class in Python, we can simply use the keyword class, and then followed by the name of the class. So usually your class has to start with a capital letter. So if your class was supposed to be hello, then in this case your H should be caps lock, right? And then followed by a parenthesis, and then followed by a quotation, and then whatsoever you intend to put within this class, right? whatsoever function you intend to put or to embed within this class. So we're going to create similar thing, but this time around, class can also be what inherits from other classes, because the base model here is what is a class. Is a class in Pydantic. So basically want to do what inherits from base model. Okay. So as such that it means that we can do what have access to the existing function within the base model class. In a nutshell, if we are expecting what a specific route to do what to accept a request body, or should I say to accept any information that requires what to be sent to the URL and not through the URL itself, then what you want to do is, first of all, you have to import what the base model from where from Pydantic. Thereafter, do what you create a class that should do what that should you create a class that should do what inherit that base model. Your class can be anything, right? The name can be anything. The name of this class can be anything at all. So in this case, I could just call this user registration, for instance. And then within this class, you want to pass the attribute of this class. So basically, you want to pass in values or variables that you expect to come in that form. So what do I mean? If I pass in name here, and then if I pass in name here, and then need to specify that this name has the word a string, and then I could just do the same thing for email and the rest of them. Email h password. So here will be h, and the h here would be integer. Here would be password. Here would be email. And with this, we can do what? We can pass this to our route function, letting our route know that this function is expecting a request body, right? That this function is expecting a request body, and the request body should come in this format, should actually contain each of these keyword or keys, and then the value should represent each of these type. Are we making sense? So what we can now simply now do is we can, similar to how we did to how we pass query and path parameter. We can do what we can also pass another parameter here. This one we call it user, right? But then if you leave it as it is, Fast API will automatically think that the user there is what is that the user there is a query parameter. Remember, a query parameter are basically what any variable that lives within within your route function. So in that case, we could just simply put a colon there and then assign this class name that we've created to that variable. That that way, Fast API will simply know that that is not a path parameter, neither is it a query parameter, but then it's another parameter that's expecting something, but then that thing should come as a JSON format, right? And then those JSON formats should meet these specifications, these violations that we have right there. Are you making sense? Is that confusing?
So please come again.
All right. Let me recap that again. Okay. So let's go it all over again. Let's do it all over again. So so far we've seen about two ways in which we can do what in which we can pass information to the client side, right? Sorry, to the server side, right? And one of those ways was path, and the other one was query. And then we say that these ways or these two methods basically pass this information through their URL. So it means that the information is passed in the URL itself. So if you have a URL, say that as URL, let's just put in a URL there. So if you have a URL that says this should be 7070, I guess. I have 70, right? And then within our URL, we can do what we can pass certain information. Probably here could be the name of student say savior, and savior there could be the information that we want to pass to the server side, right? And then the server side will basically grab that information and do whatever it says fit. And the other way was what was using a query parameter, which in this case could be like this, right? And the information here is what is still savior, but then this one actually comes like a dictionary where we have to specify a key alongside with what the value. And then we are not saying that at times it's not every information that we intend to pass through the URL itself. At times there are information that we intend to do what to actually send to a specific URL rather than doing what rather than passing it as a value in the URL. So and then I answer that an instance of it could be probably going to a website, and then you are required to do what to fill in some form and then submit those data. In that case, that information is not appropriate to what to be transferred through the URL itself, right? Through the URL itself, through the URL itself. But then it is convenient that it should be submitted to a specific URL. And once an information is being submitted, it does not actually appear in the URL section. We cannot see that information in the URL. It's basically sent behind the scene, but then it's being sent to a specific domain or to a specific URL. Which in this case, we want to do what create that URL in which this information should be sent to. So I'll just remove this for now. I think this is what is confusing us. So let me comment on all of this for now. And so far this is the information that we are expecting what you to do what to submit that information to, right? So since we are submitting, right? Since we are submitting, in fact, basically when we are submitting, we are using what post, right? When we are submitting, we are using post, right? We are using post method, and that's how we have been post method there. So it means that this information that route there what is expecting you to do what to submit something, right? But that's the whole purpose of post. It means that there's an information that's coming behind the scene that should not be available on the URL, and that information should be sent to this URL right there. So if you go to our postman at the moment, and then I think that is the URL that we'll be using, and then I make a post request to this URL, that should go through. So okay, this should be 7070, 70, I think 70, and then put this, and then we get the return statement there. But then so far we've not actually submitted any information, right? We've not actually submitted any information. Now if we navigate to okay, let's go to a form website website login form, right? I'm looking for a form. Not really. Let's see, login login Facebook. Let's go to Facebook. I believe I should not. I don't have my Facebook logged in here. Let's close that out. It is. All right. Perfect. Perfect. Now this is a very simple form that we have here, right? So now behind on top of this URL, right? Um, that URL there, if you see that if you fill in some random information there, I think that field there is an email field, right? And then we submit this information. Now behind the scene, this information is being sent to a specific URL. As such, when we click on the submit, we cannot find this information on the URL itself, but then it's being sent to what, to a specific URL. That's why if that's the case, then if we should inspect this, all these are things that we should know how to do, because it is kind of like our thing to inspect pages. So let me just pull up this form and let's see what is happening behind this form. That's what I want. Let's see. Facebook probably might have make that unavailable to us. Could be. All right, so let's see. Exactly. All right, there you go. There you go. So I don't know if you could actually see where I have highlighted. Where if can we see my mouse where it is right now? Can you see my mouse there? Are you guys seeing that? Please confirm that you can see mouse it. Can we see that? The action I've just highlighted.
So you
Yes.
can see it. You can
Okay,
see it.
perfect. Now, behind every website or behind every form that lives in a website contains two major things. One of it is action, and the other one is method. Now, the action is basically where are you this information within this field, where are we submitting it to, or where are we sending it to? Because that's basically submission. Where are we sending? So that means we will pack this information that we filled in and then send it somewhere. That's where the action comes in. Where they specify, I want this information to be sent to this point. Right? I want it to be sent to this point. And then the method is what, of course, is post. It's post because of what you are submitting. You are submitting. So as such, whatever you type here and you click on login, those information is being packaged and sent somewhere, right? And sent somewhere, and then behind the scene, the link or the route which is expecting that information processes it and does what, and probably send out the desired result. So that is more like the third and the third way of doing what, of communicating with your client, with your server side, where you do what, where you fill in some information and then do what, submit it to a specific URL, Right. So that is exactly what we are trying to implement here. All right, where a user can do what, can send in information, and then that information is not being submitted. It's not being sent via a route, but then it's being sent to a route. It's two different things. To submit it via a route and being sent to a route. Right. So when it means when I say sent to a route, it means that this information is being packaged and transported to that route. All right. So it's not actually seen on the route, but then behind the scene, that route is the what has collected that information. Does that make sense? So this same thing happens here. So it simply means that if I should copy this action here that I have here, right? That action that I can actually create my own form and log in my actual Facebook from wherever I have that available. Now the reason for that is that when I submit it, that is going to be sent to that URL. That's what that action means. It means send it to that URL. So we are also doing the same thing where we are saying that if at all the front end will do what, we also have a form, right? We also have a form, and then they will submit that form. Then I want whatever is being submitted to be sent to our login URL. In this case, you understand? Do we understand?
Yes, I understand.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what I will simply do is I will remove Pydantic from the picture completely, and probably in our next class we look at Pydantic. I think Pydantic is actually confusing us. All right. So let's actually use another method. Right. So there's another method which we can do, which we can actually which we can actually fetch information or collect expected information, and it's called a form. Now remember, all these the query and the path parameters are actually object that lives are actually function that exists within our fast API. So what do I mean? So here, if we come to um, if we come to our previous code samples, right? So far what we've done is we've uh, we've basically been putting out this name because now what's happening here is this. Um, once we once we specify this path parameter within our path, all right, and then we also put the same name in our function. Fast API automatically knows that that is what a path parameter, and also know that this one's here also what query parameter. But then we can also explicitly let fast API know that this particular one here must be what a path parameter, and this particular one here must be what a query parameter. And how would we do this? Now we can. This is very complicated. So how would we do this? We can actually import this, and because all these parameters are actually function that lives within our fast API. So we have a query parameter, sorry, a query function. So what a query function does is that if we actually use it on a variable, right? If you actually use it on a variable, it explicitly tells fast API that this one here must be a query parameter. And we also have path parameter as well. Path parameter as well. Same thing, we also have another parameter called the body parameter. And we intend to use this body parameter. So what we can do is we can simply import a body, okay, from fast API. The same way we actually imported fast API, we can also in the same directory, we can also import what body function, and then we will now go to our route, the route that we intend to do what to collect information via what a post request. And then within that function, we can specify the information we want to receive, such as what name and what email and what age and probably password. And so these are the information that we intend to collect, right? Of course, here similar to that sample that I just leave up there. So if we are intending or if you are expecting that in order for you to actually log in, that you must submit your name, email, probably I'll just change this to sign up. I think this is more reasonable. So if you're expecting to sign up with our API, we expect that to do what, that you submit name, email, age, and password, right? But then if we try to do that, probably go to our fast API, and then we'll just sorry, the postman, change this to sign up, and then hit a post request to sign up. You see that this tells us that we are missing something. This tells us that I'm missing something, which give me a sec. Send this. It's telling me not found. For some obvious reasons, most times my terminal will refuse to pick the information. So I would simply just close it down and pull it back up again. So that reason that happens frequently these days. CD integer, activate this. CD into main, then we say ubeacon main up port 8080 dash reload I'll change this to 8080. And then hit the send again. Right. So we have an error here, right? An error saying what that this is expecting what some fields that this is missing what name parameter alongside with what with email parameter alongside with age parameter alongside with what with password parameter. And these are that and then these things are also and these things are also what query parameters. They are what they are all query parameters. Query, and so on and so forth. Right. So that simply tells us that what that we can't just leave these names the way it is. If we leave it this way, it will do what? It will automatically think that these values or these expected parameters, right, are what are query parameters, meaning that they should live in our URL. So how can we make this to understand that this information are information that we are expecting to be submitted from a form? It could be from a front end form, specifically from a front end form. How do we let fast API know that? So we can do that by explicitly letting fast API know that this by explicitly letting fast API know that this should be what a form parameter or a body parameter. Okay. And how would we do this? How would we do this? We can do this by doing what we call typecasting. Sorry, not typecasting, type hinting. Right. So type hinting in Python is basically specifying an expected type for a specific variable. Though type hinting does not actually break your code in actual sense, but then Fast API actually uses this for explicit type recognition. What do I mean? If you have a variable, right, a variable that says or probably we have a function, say a function that says hello, right, and then this function takes in two parameters, a comma b. Remember, function parameters, and then this function should return a plus b, in this case a plus b, right? But then you see that if I try to invoke this function, right, and then I get a hint saying that that a can be what of any data type, b too can be of any data type. Are we following? Now, type hinting actually comes in when we can do what when we can actually specify that this particular variable should be and should be of a specific type. It doesn't mean that that it will restrict you from putting any other type, but then it's actually used for code editors, or should I say documentations, right? So what do I mean? I can simply just come here and then put a colon after this variable and put a native Python data type, probably an integer here, and also come here and say I want to put a float there. Now we get to say that if we try to invoke this again one more time, that we have a hint now saying that that a should be what integer, b should be float. But that does not mean that if I should put a as a string and put b as a list, that this should break the code. No, it's just for documentation sake or for hint sake. Are we following? So we are basically going to use the same concept because Fast API uses this same concept for this. Are we there?
Yes, sir.
So we're gonna use the same concept, and we're going to do what implement the explicitly letting fast and explicitly letting fast API know that this particular parameters are of certain type or are of a specific type, and then the way it will be interpreted in fast API is quite different, right? It's quite different, and compared to the actual way it will be interpreted in our normal Python script. Okay, so similar thing. I would basically just come here, and then I would say that the name should belong to a form. So we need to import form up here. Come back to this. So this should be form, not body. Sorry for that. So that this should be of form type. And since and form there is what is a function. And form there is a function. So we can also do this for all of them. We can also do this for all of them. We can also do this for all of them. We can do this for age, do this for email, and do this for password. So now this let's pass fast API know that okay, that these parameters are not query, they are not path, but then they are form parameters. So it means that these parameters are being expected to be sent from what from a form, from an actual HTML form, similar form that we have here, right? So it's expecting that to do what to come from there. So in that case, but then we still have a problem because we can't just leave it like this, right? We can't just leave it like this because clearly we see that already that is the one that is showing an error for us there. So what we can do is we can wrap this up in a library called annotate, and I will import that for us quickly so we see what I mean. So from typing, I'm basically just going to import that. So up here, I won't go far, but normally all your information should be at the top. So from typing, I'm going to import this one. So this is what we are going to use. All right. And then the way this man here works is that we use this man to basically add additional information to a variable. What do I mean? So this doesn't actually alter your code or break your code or add anything to your code. It only add additional information to a variable. So I'll go back again to what we have down here, to this function, right? So far we've only seen that we can only specify types, right, for a specific variable. What if we also wanted to do what to provide additional information, and probably like the title or description and so on and so forth. Now, all these things are basically, like I said, it's for hinting, right? It's for hint, so that the user knows what exactly he or she should do. Because clearly we see that when we try to invoke this function, we do what we have what a hint up there was saying that what a should be int, or a is expected to be an integer, and b is what is also expected to be what float. But then the end result would definitely be what a float. Right? But then we can also add additional information to this, right? Apart from just types. And then to add additional information, we can't just come here and probably maybe put another column and maybe put in another information, let's say title or description. That will throw an error. But we can actually wrap this up in a module called annotate. And what it does is that it helps you to provide additional information to a variable. All right. So to do that, we simply just bring in the annotate right there. Sorry, this should be annotate, and then annotate takes in a bracket, and then within this bracket, it takes in two required what information. Okay, so the first information is usually the type. So in this case, I'll say int, and then I can also provide additional ones, probably type or title or description, as the case may be. As the case may be. I could say type, or I could also pass additional information to this. So we're gonna use the same concept, and then this time around we are gonna provide probably we also said that this variable should belong to probably a form, or it's coming from uh, a form input as well, right? And then that is what we are gonna actually do to our existing parameters there. So I'll just simply copy this and just replace it with what we have here. So please, and this should actually get this actually is confusing at first, but then I think I might have done something wrong. But then it's quite easy to grab the concept. So I'll just duplicate, and just paste. and I'll just turn this off for now. Now, this actually helps. So this actually helps for fast API to know that the name is expected to be int, which in this case shouldn't be int, it should be string. And same thing happens with the email, put string there, and also age should be int here, and password should be string. Okay. So now this actually helps fast API to know, okay, that name parameter here is not just a query parameter or a path parameter, but then it's a parameter that is expected to be what a string, and also expected to be what to be um, a form parameter. So it means that this input is actually coming from a form that have a name called name. Same thing with this other one that has a name called email, and so on and so forth. Now, if we try to make this request again, then we probably will get an error. But then the error will no longer be saying that these are query parameters, but then this will say that these are what form parameters. So if we try to make a push request again, okay, let's be sure that our this is processable entity. Okay, so let's see. For some reason, my server keeps doing this. Wonderful. So let's just end this again one more time. Sorry about that. Don't know why, but it keeps doing that. And let's bring this back on again. CD done, and VNV scripts activate. Up, and that dashboard. So we're gonna try that again. And this one should be 7979. 7979. All right. So you can see that the error now is quite different, but now saying that this should be in the body parameter, that this should come as a body in a body field, right? That this should come in a body field. And as such, we can do what? Fix that up by simply navigating. So what you can actually do now is that we can actually build out a full front end application that has a form field that so you can use to what to test this route. But then Postman has the ability to simulate that for us. So Postman has a section where we can actually use it as a form field and use for what, for testing. So since we don't have the front end section which we can actually use for testing, so we can actually use that. We can actually still test this out with Postman, but then we can do what, navigate to the body section of Postman. So you can see that here we have the params, the authorization headers, and then body. So you want to go to the body section. So when you go to the body section, you have a lot of options like the form data, the raw, the binary, and the GraphQL, right? So you want to pick what the form data, and then this field, and this will do what, this will act as your front end form, all right? This will act as your front end form, and then you can use for what, for testing. So we also have, so it simply means that if I'm sending a form, that then this form should carry each of these names explicitly, all right? So to do that, we can now go back, and then we can explicitly say that this should be what, name, and the name should be probably test user, and this should be what, password. Okay, that can still stay. So you can see another one, email. We also have an email, and then we could just put a random email here, sample at gmail.com, and then age as well, age, and then this should be what, 1,000, and that's so that actually acts as our front end, and then we can use that to do what, to test for these things. So we'll simply click on this again and send this So this should actually get sent, and then we can, that has been sent, right? But then not through the URL, but then it has been sent to the URL. And we can actually show this if we want to. We can actually show this, right? So I will just edit this to actually show this information. So I could say return name, and the name should show whatsoever name has been submitted. Also return email, and the email should be whatever has been submitted as email. Also return age, and the age should basically be whatever has been submitted as the age. Also return password, and the password should basically be whatsoever has been submitted as password. And if we go back again, maybe send this again, then we should get that as the response. So that actually did come through. Do we understand? Question.
So I have question.
Okay, please go ahead
So
and shoot the
this my form is saying form is not defined.
a form is not defined. Yeah, that's because
Yes.
I actually put a form at some point up there. Yeah. So form is
Okay.
built.
Okay. Okay, so I've seen the problem. Thank you.
Any other question? Any other question? I know this particular one looks trickish. The other one looks trickish, but yeah, can't just escape it. Can't escape it. Though. Question: do I, or should I go over that again? Should I go over that again?
Yes, please go over it again.
Okay. All right. Yes, I think the pedantic way could have been quite easier. Just that, yeah, I think pedantic actually confuses us a lot. Okay, so I'll leave this here. So let me just go over that pedantic one more time, and hopefully that doesn't actually get us confused. That doesn't actually get us confused. That shouldn't actually get us confused. Okay. Okay, so let me just write it as a step. Right. So I'll write it as a step for us. All right. So when it comes to request body, okay. Now, what exactly is request body? What exactly is request body? So request body is basically data that is sent by the client, or by the front end. How am I going to put it? So your API, your API, your API. All right. So that means if in all our let's say, assuming in all our endpoints, okay, in all of our endpoints here, if at all we want to do what, to send information, if at all we want to send information to any of these routes, okay, to any of these routes, then that information is considered as what, as a request body, right? As a request body. So basically, any data that is being sent from the client to your API endpoint is what we call request body. We follow up to that point. And we also have what we call response body. Response response body is basically, we also have what we call response body, right? And response body is basically data sent sent by your API endpoint to the client. You understand up to that point? So let's take it step by step, okay? You understand up to this point?
Yes,
I
sir.
want us to be to interact, please. Okay, so all right. Now having that in mind, okay, having that in mind, Okay, so now how do we do what acquire this data that is being sent to our endpoint using what they request in fast API. How do we get this information? Now remember that I said that we I think in our first class, in our first introduction to fast API, we also said that data is that in order for API to communicate, that data must be sent as JSON format, right? Format, right? Are we together? The data in order to do what to communicate. So it means that in order if you are sending data right to our endpoint, right, not as a query or path parameter, but if you're sending it as a request body, then that means that data should be sent as a JSON as a JSON format. And JSON format what is similar to our dictionary, which comes what in curly braces that contains what that contains key alongside what with value, and could contain a lot of them, can have a lot of them, can have key 2 alongside what with value 2. You understand up to that point? That if you are sending a request body, that it must come in what in a JSON format. The only thing that does not come in JSON format are path parameters, query parameters, header, and cookie. But then if you are sending data, okay, you are sending data not via a URL, but via the request body, then that data should come in as what as in a JSON format. Do you understand up to that point? So let's communicate.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
All right, perfect. Okay, so now having that in mind, so I'll just clean this off. Right? I'll clean this off. I'll comment it out for those of us that had already typed that. Okay, so now if we could also remember that that basically APIs are basically URLs, right? URLs. So there are some URLs that does what that accepts types of different kinds of what of requests. So the thing is that once they're sending information, right? When they're sending information, all right, you're sending it, you're likely going to use what a post request, please. When you're sending information, you're basically going to what use a GET request. Now, why path and query parameters does not limit use of post request is because those parameters lives in the URL, and those URLs need to be inserted into a browser. And the moment you insert that URL into a browser, you're automatically making a GET request, right? So it's different from sending, right? Sending means that you're sending information, like you're packaging it some bunch of data and transferring it, right? So it's not available via the URL. Are we making sense? Are we making sense? Let's communicate.
Yes,
Yeah. So having known that, then we can do what we can create a simple okay a simple declarator says that since we are sending, so that means we need what we need post. We need post request. Since you are sending, so it means that we need post request, and then it means that in order to access this route, the sign-up route, that you must do what that you are sending what information. That's what it simply means. That's why if we go back to let's just put the function here, a dev function, and call this function sign up sign up, and then just take nothing at the moment, and then just return uh, probably message say or say status saying um, successful or registration or success product. Right. So this one here now becomes what this is our response body, and what we are sending is what our request body. So in order for both of them to do what to be interactive, both of them must always come in a format that looks like what that looks like dictionary, JSON standard. Okay. So now that's what if we now go to sign up and then we try to do what to access sign up, but as well as a GET request, then this should throw an error saying what is wrong with my terminal. I would probably need to probably just run this in VS Code instead. Already this thing is stressing me out. Give me a second, guys, please. Let me just put this up on VS Code. Una is stressing me out. Switch this to CMD. Alright, so UV code. So now I don't really like putting terminal on VS Code because it always makes the entire code, the entire screen looks congested. But at this point, we do not have a choice. Sorry, all lost. Sorry. Main dash ports 88C dash Windows. Yeah. All right, so let's go back again and let's try that again. So if we try to do what to make a GET request to sign up, okay, then we should get an error saying that a method not allowed. It means that if as far as sign up is actually being concerned, that you cannot just copy this URL and do what and access it in a browser. So that's the difference between what query and what and query and that's the difference between query and query and path parameter. Right? So these parameters are parameters that we can actually do what access from our browser like this. But when it gets to request route, sorry, request body route, it simply means that route is only expecting you to do what to submit something, right? So as such, we can't actually query it from what from our browser. So that's why we're having what that this method is not allowed. So as far as this information, this route is being concerned, we cannot actually access it from our browser. But then that route actually do exist that only expects what something to be sent, a request body to what to be sent. Are we following? Are we following?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
So, all right. So now having that in place, right? Having that in place, knowing that is what we call request body and response body, and then JSON formats for communication, and then the endpoints that should do what that should expect a request body. So now having these things in mind, now how do we make these people to do what to accept a certain information? Let's assume that we want this sign of what we want this sign up here. Probably let's just start with just two things. Since this whole thing is just getting complicated once it becomes too much. So let's assume that this body, right, or this route is what it wants to accept name and email, right? Let's assume that this route wants to accept name and email as a JSON format, please, as a JSON format, because in order for them to interact, they must come and what as a JSON format. In order for them to interact, they must come and what as a JSON format. So it means that if I'm submitting this to this route, that I have to find I have to package my JSON format to look like this, where we now have what we now have name, remember JSON format, and so this should come in quotes name alongside the name probably savior at this point, Basil, okay, and then we also expect what we also expect this to also have what email, and the email here should also be probably sample at gmail.com. Sample at gmail.com. So it means that our data need to be arranged in this form. So it means that if I'm sending any information here, right, I need to send it as well as a JSON format, right? And this becomes my request body. That is to be sent to a particular route, which in this case this route, right? And then this route should find a way to be expecting a request body like this, right? And then and then at the end of it all, do what? Send back a response body, which in this case status success, right? But then how do we do this? 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 So we can basically just there are a couple of ways that we can actually do it. Okay, there are a couple of ways that we can actually solve this problem. Now, the thing is that if I come to our function here and say that, okay, fine, I'm expecting a request body, right? A request body, and then this request body, all right, contains two parameters, right? Two key, two key, two keys, right? Or two values or two parameters. That's how I can put it, right? And those parameters are what? Our name and email, right? If we leave it this way, this will be considered as what? As query parameters, right? Those two they will be considered as query parameters. So now how do we solve this problem? So first API actually make use of what? Make use of what we call type hint, type hinting, type hinting to solve this particular issue, right? Type hinting. And type hinting is basically specifying a type, a native type, or anyhow a data type for a variable. For a variable. Example of it is that if I have a variable a is equals to 10, right? Or yeah, a is equals to 10, okay? And then maybe okay, so let's complete this statement. This specify a data type for a variable for code editor for code editors or documentation. So you can say that doesn't actually have any effect on your code. And you can do that by doing what? By being what? Calling having a variable followed by what? A colon followed by data type equals to maybe the value that we intend to, right? So basically, this thing here that we've just done here just makes and just provide a hint similar to what you have as password hints. Probably when you want to type in your password and it gives you a hint, right? So same thing happens there, right? So it means that when you want to use this variable, your code editor will give you a hint. Okay, this variable is what? This variable is an integer variable, nothing more, right? It doesn't break your code, right? But then fast API what uses this, and how does it actually how does it actually work? Let's look at that again. So fast API also says that, okay, that if we are expecting system information, right? System information that we can basically create a model. See model as what? As a schema or a table, right? A table for what? For the expected input. And what do we mean by table? Table are basically what? The arrangement of information in what? In rows and in column, right? In rows and in column. So where the columns are what? Are the field name or the field name, and then the rows are like are the records. What do I mean? If we have say name alongside with email, so name then becomes the column name, and you can have like a savior. Savior name becomes a record, and I have something like sample at gmail.com. We can also have other values Messi as well. Probably we can also have Messi at gmail.com, right, and so on and so forth. All right, so now fast API now says that instead of doing this, right, for each of the expected for each of the expected fields that is coming in that JSON or in that in that request body, that we can create a class that represents each of these fields. And how do we do that? We simply just create a class and then call this class whatever. Probably we could just call this class sign up, and then within this sign up we can just call it this sign up for now. We can actually leave it there, right? And then within this class, first API also said that this class must inherit from an existing class. Don't worry if you don't know what that actually means, but or what the existing class does, but it simply means that there is a class that actually exists that you can use to do what to create a, a table or a representation or a schema for the expected information, and that class is found in the Pandantic in the Pandantic library. So you basically have to bring in that class. So to bring in that class, we simply import it. Remember, importation. Since this class is not actually written by us, it's written by someone else. So we can actually do what, just import it and use it within our project. So in this case, also from Nosarina import from Pydantic, from Pydantic. Sorry, that should be from Pydantic import base model. Base model. And then this class should inherit from that base model. And then within this class, we need to do what? Within this class, we need to specify the expected fields and the type of information that should come alongside with it. So in this case, we are expecting what, let's say name, and then using type hinting, we do what, we specify this name is expected to be what, to be a string. So simply just put a column there and put what, and put string. And I also do another one here. Say this, we're also expecting what, an email for now, and this is expected to be a string as well, and that is that. So basically, what we will now do is, instead of passing each of the fields separately, we can just pass one, and then we just call this one registration. Okay, I will call this registration, and then this registration is not, and then we make this registration to be to have a type. So similar to type hinting, which I can just put string here or put integer there, but this time around it will be a type of what, of the class we've just created. So just put a type of what, of sign up there. And that and what happens? First API will do what, will allow Pydantic to do what, to carry out the job. So what happens is that once we try to submit, or when we try to make a post request to this route, Pydantic will now come in and take over the whole process and do what, and check, does the JSON data, or does the request body have this available information, the name and the email, and does it, and are these information strings? So basically, the penalty will do what, we can add validation for you automatically, right? So unlike unlike the query and the path, where you have to actually come in and manually carry out those variations yourself, which we talk about that in our next class. Pydantic will automatically just do this for you. Right? So this is not first API doing this part. This is Pydantic doing this part. First API is only using Pydantic to carry out that process, right? To make that process to be seamless, right? So instead of putting our local class data type, like the integer, the int, the string, and the rest of them, we make this to be what, to be a type of what, of the defined class, which we just have up there. So now when we try to submit, okay, when we try to make a post request, what happens? Penalty will automatically know that this man is expecting what, a value, but that value, or is expecting an information, but that information is not what, it's not a query information, neither is it a path information, but then is an information that should come from in a request body, and then it should do what, it should match this validation. It means that information should have a name key and also an email key, and their value should be what? Should be of strings. Should be of strings. So that way, if you go back again and we try to make another post request to this man this time around, so this should be post, then we should have an error, right, saying that there are things that are actually missing. Are we making? Do we have?
Hello,
Okay, we have sign up.
sorry, your audio went off a minute ago. We didn't get what you were saying.
Oh, you guys didn't actually get what I said.
Just a minute, 2 minutes ago.
Sorry, I think I'm lost. You said that you said that you guys did what? Lost me away.
A minute ago.
Oh, oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. Okay. So let me recap what I've been saying. Okay, so let me recap what I've been saying. So I basically just delete everything that we've done for the past 1 hour. Okay. Let's look at that again. Okay, so I'm basically saying that that when we are submitting information, right? When we are submitting information, okay, that what Fast API does is that it brings in Pydantic to do what? To carry out that variation, right? To carry out that variation. That variation in a sense that to check if the listed attribute is available in the response body. So how do we do this? We simply create a class. This class can be of any name. In this case, I call this class signed up. Probably I should just call it something else. But let's leave it as signed up then. Let's leave it as signed up. Or persons. I will call this persons. And this should be. And then within this class should inherit from another class in a parenting model, and that is called base model, right? So to inherit from base model, we simply import base model from parenting library, and then we pass in this base model as a parameter to the class, and then within this class we do what? We list out all the desired fields that we want, and also and also specify the type. So parenting will not just let you list out those fields, because we can just probably list out these fields like this and just say, okay, I want this to be name, I want this to be what? Email. But then parenting will just let you list them out like this, right? So you must either assign the values. So, but then we don't want to assign the values just yet. So then, but what you can do is that we can do type hinting, where we can specify, okay, that parenting, I want you to do what? To also check if the request body that is coming in is have the following fields: name and what? An email. And then the name and this email must be of what? Of string and string. Right? That's basically what you have to do. If anytime you want to get a request body, please request body. When you hear of request body, let your mind tell you what? JSON standard. So basically what we did here, okay, which we will come back to this, wasn't actually a request body. What we did here is a form data, right? So this is not actually being sent as a JSON format. Clearly, this is an actual UI that has fields for us to do what to type. But then a request body is actually sent in a raw section. So basically, this way we are actually send that request body. But since the parenting was kind of giving us headache, so I said, let me come from the part of the request body. But since the request body it's also causing another problem, so let's just go back again to the let's just go back again to the JSON standard, right? To the request body, right? So basically, what would you do if you are expecting information? Probably you expect a request body or a JSON standard. Okay, request body JSON standard. Your mind should tell you I'm referring to what? To the two things. So if they're expecting a JSON standard, right? That is similar to what our dictionary standard that should carry about two fields, right? And when I mean two fields, I mean like two items, and then each of those items should have a key called this or that, right? Which in our case, we are expecting that our JSON standard or our request body that is going to be sent should have a key called what name and what an email, and then this name and email should carry a value of what of string. Remember, these are all strings now, right? That they are quoted. Now, if that is the case, if that is what we are expecting, then we can do that. We can let Pydantic do the job for us, right? Because even Fast API have let Pydantic do the job. So if Fast API could let Pydantic do the job, who are we not to let not to let Pydantic to totally do the job? And then how does Pydantic actually handle this for us? So Fast API says that in order for you to bring in Pydantic, you need to what you need to actually do what bring in the base model, right? So Pydantic has a class called what called base model. Don't worry, you don't need to know what is inside that class. Trust me, you don't need to know it. It's irrelevant. But then if you are curious enough and want to know what is there, then in your spare time you can look at what code live behind that class, right? So, but for now, you have no business what is there in the base class, right? Just know that in order for you to know what to let Pydantic handle these things for you, all right? Your request body do what bring in the base model class, and to do that you simply do what you say from Pydantic you import what the base model, and that is a class, an existing class that lives what in Pydantic. So basically what we want to do, we want to inherit. So inheritance is simply is similar to what we know that we carry people's traits. You inherited some behavior from our parents or some characteristics from our parents. That same idea actually it was actually was happening here. So basically what we want to do, so this is a class, right? The base model is a class. So what we want to do now is to what you have to create your own class, and to create your own class we use the keyword class followed by what the class name. The class name can be anything, right? But then the class name is by convention should start with what with a capital letter, which in this case we can say that my P there is capital letter, and then followed by what parentheses. Now within this parentheses, simply do what pass in the base model, and what you've done is called inheritance, right? What you've done is called inheritance. So it simply means that within our own class we can do what still have access to what to the base model class, to the base model class. But no problem. You don't have to know what is inside that class, right? So what you want to do is you import that class as it is, and then what create your own class and inherit it, and which is what we've done there. Now, within this class, you want to list all the fields you are expecting alongside with the type, that's the data type that you are expecting. Now, this type is not basically Python type, please. It's basically Pydantic type. So I will also urge us that in our spare time, look up Pydantic, right? Pydantic is also a Python library that shares almost the same the same the same that almost the Python, but it has some few differences. So this is Pydantic documentation. It's quite cumbersome, right? So, and there are a lot of fields there, right? And a lot of information here. So you can have the SQL. So that is the base model class that have a lot of things, a lot of information right there. But don't worry, you don't have to actually know what's inside this class. So I'm not showing you that Pydantic is different from Fast API. It is a different library on its own, right? So now what you have to do is after creating your class, within your class, you know what, you basically have to specify the expected fields or the expected items in the JSON body, which in this case we are expecting that this item should contain what a key called what name, and the value should be what string, and then it should have another key called what email, and the value should be what string, right? So then what then happens that after creating that class, you can have as many as you want, depending on what you're expecting to be submitted or to be sent to that URL. Now, depending on that, then what you can now just do is simply pass this class as a type to a variable in your route function. So I could pass it as a type hint, sorry, pass it as a type hint to what, to a variable in your type function. So what do I mean? I simply put a variable here. This variable could be any variable at all. So I can put a there and then what, pass this our class as what, as a type hint to that variable. And how do we do type hinting? We simply put a colon and do what, pass in the class as the hint there, right there. And then that's that. That is the financial doer will take over from there. So once we what happens is that is it a query is variable or a path um, parameter? If it's not, then it will check again. Is it which class does this belong to? So you check and then you see that this man A here belongs to a class or is it or should have a type of what, or is expecting a specific information that should be of the type of person, right? It means that that is expecting a JSON format that should have this all these attributes provided in that class. So what happens is that it will leave that validation to work for Pydantic. So Pydantic will now take over and then check and go through your JSON information. Is there a key called name? Is the value a string? Is there a key called email? Is the value a string as well? If it is, then to go ahead and do what, and it will go ahead and do what, and pass that information to your route. So you can do what, you can further ahead do what, process it as you see fit. Do you understand? Do we understand? So now if we go back to our route, our to our function here, and then we try to make a post request again. And then we try to make a post request to this man. We now have that certain things are missing. Certain things are missing. Are we sure that this man is running on the right port? Let's be sure. There are seeing things that are not supposed to be seen. Will I keep refreshing my terminal each time? What's options? Right, so it thinks our this thing has fixed again for some reason. So let's put it back on again. Sorry. So this time it should be faster. So we'll just put up UV DMV backslash scripts backslash activate. Okay, this should be change this to command prompt. Sorry. So we are currently in PowerShell. Send this to command prompt. So you say UVcon, and then we say main instance of our application. That port 8080 dash relay. Probably it's the relay that's causing the problem. All right, so we're going back. Let's confirm that that's actually going through. So 8080. So you send another post request, and then we have. Not sure that has even gone through. Probably we should just put a different port number. So put a different port number. Probably I shouldn't even put this because in this video is giving me headache. So I put 1990 this time around 1990, and going back. So let's put 1990 here. 1990, and then click on what, submit. And then we get what we get, that we are missing what, certain information, right? They are missing certain information. So the information that we are now missing is what is our JSON standard data, right? So if we now pass this in as expected, so I'll copy this one that we've already done, and then do what? Go to the raw section, please. That is your request body, right? Go to the raw section, okay? So when you click on the body, they want to choose raw and not form data. Please click on raw, and then after that, you do what you said. And then we have what status successful. So that's to say that that actually went through, and what the variation was what was being carried out. The variation was being carried out. And you can say that if I change name to be what an integer, say 10, and then I try to send this again, so this should throw an error saying that what our input should be what a valid string. So you say that it doesn't just expect these fields. It also don't work. It also does what carry out string validations, right? So where our usual type hinting is for how to put it. While our usual type hinting is for ideally or VS Code documentation and the rest of them. Once we use it in fast API, right, especially in Pydantic models, it is being used for validation, right? So it kind of has what a validation check that expect that information is what is has met the required what data type, right? So since we said that what that name and email should be strings, so as such that did not actually went through, and we expect that this here should be what should be a string. So you have to come back here and we edit this and put our that's there, and then that actually went through successfully. So we can actually do this information, all right? We can actually see this information. So if I should just simply return status alongside with the information that we just sent, so and then return A. Remember, A here is what is the variable that is referencing what this Pydantic class, right? So it means that I should just basically see what has been submitted. All right. So and I have to refresh this manually because remember we did not actually add the reload. So since the reload has been causing problem, so we have to be refreshing our server manually each time we make changes to our code. Unfortunately. But I think that way is much more better than going to start the whole process of putting on your server. Right. So if I now send this out now, so we can now have the status alongside with the info, and the info basically just send back the JSON information that we've just submitted. And we can actually grab a single information. If you simply say a.name, then we can actually get a single information, right? So A there will just give you the JSON standard as it is. But then if we just want to see one value at a time, then we can just say A dot the field name, right? And then we can now say probably a email, and we can now have what? We can now have A dot the email. And that will fetch them one after the other. So remember, you need to reload manually, which I'm beginning to like it. But, and then we do what we've just gotten all those things as it should be. Do we understand? Do you understand?
Yes, I understand.
So any question, we should ask question, right? So the process is quite simple, right? All we have to do is that if you're expecting an information, you do what you simply bring in the base model. You have no business what is there, please. You have absolutely what no business. Do what create your class using what the class keyword, and then your name of your class followed by what parenthesis, and then within your parenthesis you do what you put your base model followed by what a colon, and then within this class you do what you simply list out the expected fields alongside what with the expected data type. So if I want the person to have more fields, okay, so let's just bring back the rest of the fields. Now that we have them sorted out, we'll call this one h, and the h should be integer. And we also have another one called we have a password. Password should be what another string, and then that will do what that will now tell us that what that that we are expecting a certain information. And that information we are expecting what a JSON data, and then those data should contain these fields. Should contain the following keys, and the values should match the listed out data types there. And then what do we just do? We simply pass this as what as a type hint, right, to a variable in our function in our route function, okay, in our route function, which in this case, if we had not have done this, then a would have been considered a query parameter. So now to let fact API know that this is not just that this is not a query parameter, but this is what a pedantic model, meaning that we are expecting that the client should do was to submit a pedantic model or a JSON data that should follow this requirement here. So to do that, we can simply do come here and put the column and then the class name, which in this case is what person. And then fast API will do what we will simply understand that. So I will simply just print a rather than printing everything right now. So I'll just print a person that I've just registered. And that's so we refresh again. Remember, you have to manually do these things. And then we didn't think at this point I have to copy the rest of them again. So we don't have to go and type. And now we should be used to copy and paste. So I'll bring in password. Go back to our postman. So specify password for the rest. So this should be input. And this should be commented. So this should come out there. Put this in. This should also be input. Should also be input. Okay. All right. So now if we submit that, then that should actually go through password. Are we missing password? Should be a valid string. Oh, sorry about that. This should be a string of probably. Then we send again, and that actually went through. You understand? Any question? Any question? Any question? The silence means no question. Silence means no question. So we would wrap it up there for today. We will wrap it up there for today, and then when we meet again on Monday, I will iterate what I've just said. Okay, so this class I will kind of recap it again, probably in the first 30 minutes of our next class, and then our next class will cover up the request body and the parent and the we also cover up headers and the rest of them. Right.
Yeah, hello, sir.
Excuse me, sir. Is it
Okay.
validation you are?
Sorry?
Hello.
Was it validation you were saying of violation? I couldn't really get it.
You mean for our next class?
No, when you are, I didn't want to disturb the flow of the lecture. Is it validation? I just want to confirm it.
Yeah, validation, right? So this
Okay.
thing he actually carried out validation as well. So it validates that the JSON structure actually matches what has been specified here.
Yeah, hello, sir.
Okay, sir. Yeah, question.
Hello, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chin has right. Who's talking at the moment?
No,
I'm seeing about
fine.
3 mics on. Okay, Mr. Ifeanyi.
Yes, of course.
Okay,
Yeah,
Mr. Ifeanyi.
I have a question, sir.
Okay.
Yes, that task 3, the assignment you gave on task 3, I kind of saw 0 for 100, and I'm like, is there a way? Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm hearing you, Mr. Ifeanyi.
Yes, yeah, I know that the rule, I'm supposed to obey the rule strictly, and I tried to convert the the assignment into the folders. And I was like, is there anything I could do? And I realized there was nothing to kind of use to convert all this the result, that is the different assignments 1, 2, 3, and 4 into different 4 folders. So I said I'm going to ask if there is a way I could do it so that I could recopy it and resend the link to you or your DM.
Mr. Fanya, I don't think you should have 0. It's not enough. No, you should not have 0, Mr. Fanya, because I looked at your script before this class, and you're having 0, and there's a problem. Probably log out and log in. You shouldn't have 0, Mr. Fanya.
Okay.
You should not have 0.
Yeah, sir, can you review it? Can you review it, sir? Because it's what I'm seeing on my dashboard.
Try and log in now.
No.
Try log out and log in again right now, like now, as we are on this call. That should not be. That should not be. So, who else have similar problem? So I think I graded about 4 tasks today. Okay, Mr. Gaio, let me just put this recording stop for now.
All right, sir. Okay, I've